Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Daily. It's time to wake up, even though it's probably in the evening for you. We are super excited to, I guess, kind of cut through some of the haze for you here today. And for those of you that don't know, the rooster in the background is mine. If it was Clay's, it would have already been eaten up. So his name is Stan. And our show for you today is really kind of cutting through some of the chaos out there. There has been a tremendous amount of information coming from all directions on all the changes coming from the VA, things that are already implemented. And it's creating kind of this, man, the sky is falling type of feeling. And there's a lot of rattling going on with all this information. We want to bring it back down to the basics and kind of walk through some of the things that we think about here. So hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I truly appreciate it. Clay truly appreciate it. It's what helps get the word out. And with that, Clay, I'm going to shoot it over to you to kind of give us a breakdown of what we're going to talk about today and really why it's so important.
Oh, yeah. So the overall topic is just getting back to the basics. All these changes are happening. Okay, well, what do we do about it? And the answer is it's going to happen. It's out of our control. So let's take control of what we can do. So what I want to talk about today are mistakes. Mistakes throughout the process, whether you're preparing a claim, you've already submitted that claim and you're waiting on the CMP exam. The CMP exam itself, there are many mistakes just within that time frame. And then it's okay, well, what happens after the CMP exam and how do we read our decision letters? And then once we get that rating, well, what's next? Are thank thank you very much, Stan. Are veterans that are rated at 100% not taking advantage of their full benefits? And that same concept applies to veterans rated at 50%. Are you taking full advantage of your benefits? And so we see mistakes made all the time. And I like how Jason
That's
Jason
me.
from Veterans InfoTap always states that, don't be a I wish I had known. Okay. I have a moment of a wish I had known about a clothing allowance for at least 3 years for a skin condition. I wish I would have known. Okay. I missed out on that. So today's topic is really just making you a not I wish I had have known. So with that, Jason, when it comes to preparing a claim, what are some very common mistakes you see, and what are your advice to kind of correct those mistakes as a veteran would submit or prepare to submit that claim?
So I would say, and this comes from the experience that we have here on YouTube, but also the 10 years or so of veterans benefit stuff, and primarily veteran service officer accredited with the VA, running a sizable office with a staff helping veterans. And I would say that when we see mistakes, it's typically somebody who's coming in after they've already tried to give it a go themselves. And what we commonly see is a rush to get the claim filed, therefore a lack of evidence. Now, this evidence could be, I mean, anything. It could be just lackluster evidence, just, I threw in a letter myself explaining that I have this condition. Okay, fine, that's evidence, but it doesn't really, I mean, it kind of counts. You need something a little more concrete, right? It's a good addition. It's nice to have it in there, but really you need some more stuff. So it's the whole gamut, Clay. You're going to see people who will file claims thinking, and this is the sad part, and I'm going to blame the VA and everybody else who should be informing veterans, that we tend to try to think through things logically and go, okay, well, if the VA has a gigantic medical system, obviously they would, check me out and help me get my claim going and diagnose me for my claim and all that good stuff. But that's simply not true. So what happens is that, you'll get people just from not understanding how the process works, thinking that the VA is going to step in and help to document and create the evidence needed. For me, it's a lack of awareness, lack of education, coupled with haste. So, once you decide, okay, I'm going to file a claim, it's like once you decide to buy a car, right? You've been thinking about what's the next car you want to get. Finally, you nail it down. You know exactly which one you want. Now you can't hardly wait to get somewhere to buy it. And sometimes you'll take a crappy deal just so you can walk away with that car that you wanted so bad. So we tend to rush. What you can do, and I already know you're thinking it, Clay, is my most favorite thing about the VA process is the intent to file. Throwing in that intent to file, let that take the pressure off. You filed something, you started the process, you can rest. Go ahead and take the time to develop your claim, get all the evidence you need, and make sure that you're submitting something that we call fully documented and developed, right? Get all the evidence for all the key points, which I could totally dive into, but I want to kick it back to you because those are some of the things that I see as just, kind of those three, right? The lack of education, lack of, awareness basically of how the whole system works, and then the rushing aspect.
Oh, yeah. So it's in line with what you said. I totally agree. I would frame it this way, though, is a lot of veterans, everyone, not everyone, most veterans understand that VA healthcare is VA healthcare and VA disability is VA disability. But I want to explain what that actually means, okay? And it's kind of like how you said, how the VA is not going to help you get that evidence, okay? So once you submit that claim, you're not a patient. That is a legal document. It's a legal process of submitting a disability claim, which is the VBA. Just think about it. You're asking the VA to give you taxpayer dollars for probably the rest of your life. Okay. And so that's the right frame of mind. That's the right frame of mind veterans should have when they submit a claim, because that right there kind of sets the stage to saying, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, then let's get some evidence, right? It's kind of like a court case. Whenever you hire a lawyer and you have whatever problem it is that you're going to have, that lawyer is not only going to make your argument, but they're also going to understand the opposing side's argument. That is what veterans have to do, saying, okay, what does the VA need for me to be awarded service connection? And on the flip side, what is the VA going to use to deny that claim? And just starting from there, and I understand there's a huge education process to that. I'm not saying there's not. But if veterans could somehow get to that starting point, I think just from there we will see an increase in service connection. Just from there. Now that doesn't go to say that you can't use VA healthcare as evidence. I'm a huge fan of using VA healthcare, and why? Because if you're 50% and up, it's free. And if you're 40% and below, if that condition is service connected, then that is free, along with the copays and the medications and the MRIs and X-rays and physical therapy. I mean, you name it. Okay, so there's a huge monetary benefit to using VA healthcare, but that does not discount private insurance either. Um, in my personal opinion and experience, the VA is quick. VA healthcare is quick to give treatment, right? That's the VA's goal. VA healthcare, your doctor does not give two diddly squats about your VA rating or what it is you plan to do with your VA rating. They will help if they can, but it's not on their mind. Their mind is, hey, you had this condition, let's treat it. That's it. That is the extent of VA healthcare. Private insurance, in my opinion, is if you need a formal diagnosis, like an ICD code, which is International Classification of Diseases, you're probably better off going the private insurance route when it comes to that specific evidence gathering. So that would really be the number one mistake I see veterans make is when they submit that claim, they don't understand that it's a legal proceeding, and that comes with evidence, not just hearsay. Okay. Now, there's a point in time where hearsay, and by that I mean statements, do come in clutch. But in my opinion, again, it's not going to be during the initial claims process. You'll really see that come through in appeals, specifically the Board of Appeals. And that gets into the weeds of some common mistakes. But did that spark any thoughts on other mistakes that you want to bring up?
Well, just a point of clarity too, because I love that you brought this up, and it's not really clarifying what you said. It's just really for the viewers to understand it a little more too. VA healthcare I think is a great benefit for all of us. And I know that it's a geographic thing for real. I mean, some medical centers or clinics suck. I get it. That's the leadership at that level that's messing that thing up, right? But for all the reasons you said, the free aspect, all those things are great. I would say that for VA healthcare, sure, for evidence for increases, awesome. Evidence for maybe a secondary, sure. Evidence for a service connected, if you already have the nexus, sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to establish a nexus, probably not, because they're not really apt to write you a nexus letter. They don't really want to complete a DBQ for you, these types of things. So you're probably better off to go with a civilian provider who might be able to do that type of stuff for you. So just to, again, I mean, it's filled with nuance, this world. The other kind of piece is, sure, even if you don't have a VA rating currently, especially now, chances are you may qualify for VA healthcare. Now, you have to run both in tandem and drive each ship yourself. Okay, so back to Clay's point, the VBA side, the Veterans Benefits Administration, filing for a claim, filing for monthly compensation, a payout, an award, right? That's a legal process that at the end of it, you can have a decision by a judge. So you're going to run that. Now, you can also go over to the VHA, and if you qualify because you're toxic exposed or whatever, and May 5th, was it May? March 5th.
March 5th.
Yeah, March 5th. I'm like, May, where's May? March 5th. March 5th, that opened up to about 3.5 million more veterans that didn't qualify for it before. So there's doorways into the healthcare system. You may qualify, so go find out if you do. You can start seeing, if you don't have any other insurance or it's too expensive or whatever, go that route and start to get your evidence together as well. So yes, they can help. They're just not going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go help yourself, right? So with that, I'll kick it back to you, Clay. I just wanted I got those two thoughts from your comments.
Oh yeah, and going back to your haste, I think that is, if I had to really rank these in order, submitting your claim too fast probably is number one in my book, to be honest with you. Because what I want to do now is, all right, we've prepared our claim. Now you're going to go submit that claim. And my number one recommendation is veterans do their own preparing. They understand the process just enough to figure out what it is you want to claim, and then take that to a VSO, someone who is accredited through the VA, and submit that claim. That's my personal opinion. Can you do it yourself? Yes, you can. It's very easy. You can do it online. If you're an OG, you can do it by mail if you want to, or over the phone. Your call, okay? But online is very, very simple. But the VSO will make sure not just that your claim is submitted, but if you have private records, the VSO would know, oh, we need to get those private records and submit them. And they'll have access to a system where they can submit those records. You don't have that access. And so you would have to use Quick Submit, but you probably don't know how to use Quick Submit. So that's like a small scenario where a VSO would come in clutch. But once that claim is submitted, I can't tell you how many times I've heard veterans and ask me saying, "Hey, I've already submitted my claim. Can I submit more evidence?" And I'm like, "Sure." But, it's kind of like whenever my son asks me for something and I'm like, "But why did you do that anyways?" It's kind of like I'm talking to a kid. I'm like, you have the intent to file. There's no reason to submit that claim until it's ready. And I like how you brought up fully developed, because that's the goal. The goal is to submit fully developed claims. And fully developed claim has evidence from service, has the current diagnosis, and then it has the nexus. That's the goal. At a minimum, what veterans should at least submit is, I call it an evidence-based claim, which is like one step below a fully developed. You at least need to have evidence from service and at least a current diagnosis. If you're submitting your claim and there's still time on your intent to file and you don't have those two, shame on you. I'm going to say it. Shame on you. Okay. Now, is it the end of the world? No, it's not. But that haste thing really comes to mind after we've already, prepared the claim, then went ahead and to submit that claim. Jason, do you have any discussions on mistakes when it comes to actually submitting that claim?
Okay. So I am in your world as far, and look, I'm a little bit biased because I was a VSO, right? So, but here's the thing. There's the reality. The VSOs are, and I guess this could be a mistake, right? Going to a VSO, Veteran Service Office, or Veteran Service Representative, an accredited rep, whatever you want to call it, right? Somebody who is accredited with the VA. Typically, it's going to be a county employee or it's going to be a state employee. But there's also the veteran service organizations like VFW and so forth, American Legion, DAV, that have accredited reps as well. I'm going to focus in on the government paid representative for you, which is going to be your county or state employees, right? So often, it's not everywhere, right? Geographically, whatever, but often these offices are underpaid. Therefore, they're understaffed. Therefore, they cannot be very proactive. Therefore, what happens to you as the veteran, sadly, is look, we're going to set up an appointment for you. It is whatever, a month and a half from now. Okay. You're already irritated about that. Okay. So fine. You have your appointment a month and a half from now. In the meantime, you should file your intent to file yourself. It's one page, super easy. You can actually just call the VA and tell them, I'm veteran so-and-so, and I'd like to file an intent to file. And then they will. That way, you're not wasting any time while you're waiting for your appointment. Okay. So that's one mistake. Fixed, by the way, because we fixed it right now.
Yeah.
All right. Number two is remember what I said about them being overworked, understaffed. They can't be proactive. They're being more reactive. Think of them more as an order taker. They're going to look at whatever you want to do. Now, granted, again, there's always exceptions to the rules, right? There are some great folks out there that go the extra mile. My office was one of those where we really tried to do that. But there's a lot that aren't. Now, if you're viewing it as an order taker, I'm bringing you exactly what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I just want to make sure it's done right and get it submitted so you can have eyes on it too. If you're looking at it through that mindset, you need to go back through and make sure that you're finding every condition that you want to file for, that you can potentially get service connected. And I say potentially because some of them might be on the fence, but hey, the answer is always no if you don't ask. So if you're like, hey, I might be able to get this service connected, you should probably just file for that because it's better than not. And then 10 years later you do, and then you get awarded and you're like, I wish I would have done it 10 years ago, right? So if you have a potential of getting something service connected, you should probably file for that. Build up all the evidence, all that good stuff, put it all together the best you can. A lot of times we're going to be missing nexus, so you got to manufacture the nexus evidence by way of nexus letters from your doctor and buddy statements, all that good stuff. So those are often things that get missed as you go to an accredited rep because you're not viewing it as an order taker. So I'm just doubling down on what you said, Clay. Mm-hmm. Do it yourself. You have pretty much all the tools you need right here on YouTube between this channel, Clay's channel, my channel, other people's channels. There's a lot of good information to get your mind going and get you down the right track. Now it's up to you to pull that all together and then carry that box full of paperwork down to the VSO's office that month and a half later and go, here's everything that I want to file with my secondary conditions to these ones and my secondary to this and whatever, right? So I would say that the biggest mistake with filing the claim is with a VSO is not preparing fully yourself as though you were going to file it yourself. So you're going to miss those opportunities because otherwise you're going to walk in and you're going to say, I want to file for my migraines and my back, period. You go in, they're going to file for your migraines and your back. Meanwhile, you miss down on arthritis, you miss down on radiculopathy, you miss down on whatever, right? So you want to make sure that you're absolutely investigating yourself for everything that you could potentially get service connected. The other thing would be, maybe you're not submitting on the right form, right? I mean, look, unless you're doing it online, right? Online, it's going to automatically pick the right forms for you. So for example, if you're filing for an increase, that would be a supplemental claim. Supplementals aren't just for, I disagree with you on this current decision. It could be 10 years later, I'm filing for an increase on a previous condition. You're still going to want to use a supplemental because it's working an existing condition. So you could be filing on a wrong form. I mean, you could find the wrong form online, even if it is the right form. It could be a dated form if you're not getting it directly from the VA. If you're trying to do it the OG style, like you said, and mail it in, right? So it's always good, and it circles back to what you said, Clay. Is having that second set of eyes by an accredited rep is a good thing. Hey, this is the wrong form, or hey, you forgot to sign here. Missing signatures. That's another one. People sign in the wrong spot, right? They sign in a wrong spot. They don't sign at all. A family member's trying to help them, and they miss the witness's signature spot. There's supposed to be two, only one sign. So there's all kind, especially when you start getting into the more complex claims like pensions and that type of stuff. So I'm starting to go wild now. So I'm going to kick it back to you, Clay, so you can bring me back down a notch or two.
Yeah. So on the form things, there's really two mistakes I see on the forms. It's one for secondaries. Let's say you're denied migraines, and then you go to Facebook or YouTube and you're like, ooh, I want to go migraine secondary to tinnitus. So you submit a secondary claim online. You go to va.gov, you do your migraine secondary, and all of a sudden it's closed in like 6 days. You're like, what the heck? They didn't even give me a CMP exam. And it's like, well, that's because it was a supplemental claim, but you didn't know that because what you did is you saw something at face value, but you didn't take the legwork to say, oh, I was denied, which forces it to be a supplemental claim. That's probably the number one mistake I see on the wrong form. The number two mistake is it all goes back to haste. It's all about speed. We want it now. And I understand that. I'm a millennial, right? My generation is the definition of instant gratification. I understand this. I'm drinking Starbucks. Okay. I'm a millennial.
And I made mine.
Yeah. And the other mistake I see is, all right, well, you'll get a denial immediately online. You'll hit, I disagree with this, and you're doing HLR. Well, a month or two goes by, you haven't heard anything. You're getting information from YouTube or Facebook or Reddit or whatever it is you get your information from. You get frustrated because we want it now, and then you submit a supplemental claim. Well, guess what? That claim is going to be closed in about 5 to 6 days. Do you know why? Because when an HLR is happening, when it's in progress, there is no doing anything else. You have to wait for the HLR to close. And those are small nuanced things that no one's going to know unless you watch this because we're informed and educated, but you're not going to know that. And there are millions of little nuanced things, and that's just going to delay your claim longer, and it's going to make you frustrated, which is going to make you want more instant gratification. And then you can see there's just this cycle, and then all of a sudden, you're going on TikTok talking about how the VA sucks this and VA sucks that. And I get it, right? But it all comes down to submitting the right form. It's one of those things that we don't think about because it's easy. But by not submitting the right form, you're just going to delay until you're so frustrated that you get the current culture of veterans and VA disability claims as we have it right now. If that didn't spark any thoughts, Jason, so once we prepared the claim, we submitted the claim, that claim's in process, right? What should veterans do, or what are some common mistakes veterans make leading up to the CMP exam and then at that CMP exam?
Well, they keep submitting additional evidence, thinking that now that they've pulled the trigger early, right? So now a premature fire is never good. So here you are, and you're trying to just double down on everything that you submitted because you're freaked out coming into the CMP exam. Now, I would say that there's two things that I always tell people to do once their claim's submitted. One is sign up, if you haven't, on va.gov so you could track and follow the progress of your claim. Now, is it a perfect science? No, but at least it gives you something, because for everybody that's already filed a claim, you get this. For the brand new people who've never filed a claim and are getting ready to file a claim, this is going to be the longest 6 months of your life, or however long it takes to decide your claim, because you have talked to enough people, you've listened to enough YouTube videos or whatever to understand that there's a payout at the end and there's going to be back pay. And so you're constantly wondering, did I get approved, and what's my percentage, and oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I'm getting an Escalade, whatever it is, right? So here you are. Now, doing that will help kind of give you something to at least look at instead of wonder. So you're not calling your VSO 1,000 times a day, right? So now you can kind of track it a little bit. You can see some progress, whatever. So that's one thing I tell people to do. The other thing I tell people to do is I actually tell them this way up front, but if I caught somebody after they've already filed their claim, right? So in this moment, oh, no, I'm good with the VA. I just filed my claim 2 months ago. I'm good. Okay. I wish we would have talked 3 months ago, but that's okay. What I want you to do is make sure that you review the schedule of ratings for every condition that you filed for. Read through each line of criteria for each rating that is possible until you figure out which one is you, right? Now, if you've already filed your claim and it's in process and you didn't do this up front, well, that kind of sucks, but it's not the end of the world. You might get rated lower than what you think, right? Which that part sucks. But what I tell people to do is plan for the worst case. Now, why it's still going in process? Why not? Right? Mm-hmm. Look through the schedule of ratings, read the things, find out which rating you would qualify for. You're the patient. You know what signs and symptoms you have. Now, look, there's medical jargon in there. Google search it, get the translation so you know what the hell they're talking about. Then go to your doctor and make sure that you are sharing this information with your doctor and having them put that into your medical record so you can start building that evidence in the event that you need to file a supplemental after the fact. Now, I know I've jumped way ahead, but this needs to happen now, right? Ideally. So I tell people to do that. And also, this also preps you for the CMP exam, right? Because now you know exactly the criteria required for each one of your conditions to get the specific rating that you deserve, whatever the rating that is. It could be a 10%, could be a 60%. Just depends on you and your symptoms, right? It's not a closed book test. CMP exams are stressful just because you're going to the unknown, meeting a person that you don't know who's going to decide your life, right? And it's like, oh, wow, what if they don't like me? What if I come off like an asshole? Whatever, right? So these are important things to understand, is that, look, for them, you're pretty much just another number coming through the door. They're not really paying that much attention to you. But you better be prepared, because what they're doing oftentimes, and I'm sure you would agree, Clay, probably more times than not in today's world, it's going to be a contracted company that you're going to go to the CMP exam with, more times than not. So all that's happening here is the CMP examiner gets the request, they get paperwork, your paperwork, to go through and look at, but they also get a form in which they need to fill out, asking you questions. So the questions that they ask you for your condition is the same questions they're going to ask Clay for the same condition. They're going to just go through that. Those questions are designed to figure out where you fall on the rating schedule. Okay? Because they need to formalize it some way so they can be fair and equitable for all of us, right? So if I ask everybody the same 10 questions and 6 of those questions answered this way equals this percentage, then everybody's fair, right? So knowing that is important. You can't just go in there and think. People don't prepare. That's the problem, right? They don't prepare for the CMP exam. They just wait for it. They get there and they go, it really affects my life. My life is really in shambles because of this. My life is not the same. Well, it doesn't really say that in the schedule of ratings for GERD or for migraines, right? Now it says bed rest, and maybe if you have a good C&P examiner who might ask you 15 questions to get you to say, well, yeah, I got to lay in bed and just kind of like wane it out for 7 hours, right? So I know I'm rambling, but there's a lot in that. And the biggest piece is not preparing for the C&P exam with the appropriate information, which you can get from the C&P, from the schedule of ratings. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Clay, because I know that you do. I've pretty much eaten up a lot of that.
I have an original thought, but I do want to add on to what you had said, because what you described is what's called a disability benefit questionnaire, or DBQ. And guess what? They're not secret. In fact, they're called public DBQs. So you can go on Google right now and type in VA public DBQ. It'll be the va.gov link. You can open that up and you'll see musculoskeletal, you'll see back, you'll see neck, you'll see mental health. I mean, whatever it is you're claiming, that's what's going to be completed. Now, I'm on board with the schedule ratings. You definitely want to understand that, because the DBQ has more potatoes, if you will, where the schedule ratings is the meat. But the schedule ratings you'll find kind of entwined within that DBQ. But it's the playbook, you know. If I were to schedule a meeting with you and I said, "Hey, here's what we're going to discuss," that's basically what the DBQ is. But what I would add on to that is, when it comes to C&P examiners, specifically the contractor ones out. And I do agree with you that, especially today, those are going to be contracted out more so than with the VA, especially with the March 5th push for VA healthcare. VA healthcare was already tied up as is. Now we have millions of veterans eligible, assuming half of them register, okay, if not more, it's going to be contracted out probably. But with that, believe it or not, these companies, I mean, they are a company. They contract for the VA. They don't work for the VA, if that makes sense. And so through that company, I'll take VES as an example. One, VES has sort of like a doctrine, if you will. They have a code of ethics that you can Google and look up. And whenever they schedule you an appointment, you'll get an email, you'll get a little whole packet from USPS or FedEx in the mail about your C&P exam. And on that is a website from that company. And I think the number one mistake is, when it comes to C&P exams, I said all that to drive to this one comment, is
Welcome to my world.
Veterans do not upload evidence to the C&P examiner, and they give us that option. No one talks about it, which I think is very weird. But if you look at the OIG report from 22, the OIG absolutely slammed the VA when it comes to proper procedures on C&P exams. And over their test bed, which was like 100 and something thousand disability claims, 68, I want to say 62 or 68, the majority of those claims, the VA failed to upload relevant evidence to that examiner. Now, how crazy is that? We are expecting an examiner to give this nexus, which is a medical opinion, and their career is tied to that, but yet they don't have the evidence. So you could see how the ORG would slam the VA for that. So just knowing that fact, and that's objective, the C&P exam companies give us the opportunity to upload evidence. And something I'll see, I'm not sure if you're on Facebook at all, Jason, but if you browse the Facebook disability groups, which is like worse than a spouse group on base, like Fort Belvoir spouses, all the drama in there. VA disability groups is 10 times worse, right? But I can't tell you how many times I've seen veterans complain saying, "Hey, I already uploaded my evidence. The VA has everything. Why is this C&P exam company asking me to upload forms?" And I'm just like, dude, their hands are out saying, "Hey, let me help you." And
Right.
that instant gratification, or that dissent, or that hate and discontent. And I get it. It's annoying. But it's the exam company saying, hey, we know the OIG slammed the VA. Let me help you. And then in the same breath, we're like, no, get away. And so I think the number one mistake is not taking advantage that the CMP companies are contracted out. Okay. You can upload evidence. Now, I would caution against bringing evidence to your exam, right? That would be my last resort. I'm not saying don't do that. But if it's already too late, wing it, okay? But the examiner is not obligated to look at that legally. Keep that in mind. But if you upload that evidence prior to, okay, it gives the examiner and the company a chance to look at your evidence. And that part is absolutely crucial. And guess what? It really goes back to haste because the CMP companies work like that. Once you are contacted by that exam, I'm telling you, in about 3 or 4 days, you'll have your exam. So you got to move. Okay. So the only way to actually upload your evidence, you have to have it. And it goes back to preparing that claim. You need to know your evidence and understand your evidence. So when you're uploading it with your claim, when you're uploading it to your CMP examiner, and more importantly, when you're speaking to your examiner, all you're basically doing is regurgitating your evidence. And that right there makes the process a lot easier. Okay. Um, Other than that, Jason, that's really my number one when it comes to CMP exams specifically. Do you have any more thoughts you want to add to mistakes on just exams in general?
Well, I want to double down on what you said because it's super important. And if people kind of grazed over it, they need to understand. The VA is relying on the CNP examiner to determine your nexus, is what Clay said. So, in other words, the VA, and remember, most of our conditions, our nexus is kind of weak. I mean, because you don't have any hard, I got diagnosed for migraines in service, right? You just don't have it. So our nexus is usually the weakest part of our claims on even a fully developed claim. So when the VA has us going to these CMP exams, just like Clay said, they are relying on the opinion of this medical examiner. They're going to either say that it's at least as likely as not, or that it's not as likely, right? And and you put it good, Clay, look, they're putting their hands out for you. And the way you need to view that is, look, this is not the VA, right? I've already heard all the horror stories about the VA. The VA this, the VA that. Well, guess what? This is not the VA. They're going, let me help you with the VA because the VA is this and that and this and that. So look at it more as though they could be actually kind of on your side if you supply them with the information that they need. Now, again, back when I was saying that you need to review your schedule of ratings for your conditions, you need to go to your physical doctor, right? Get that implemented. Now, guess what? You have that evidence that you could then upload into your CMP exam portal, right? The big key here is not only doing it there, you also have to do it on the VA side because there's no guarantee that that's going to go back to the VA. In fact, I read something somewhere on VA CMP exams. I think it was a video that I did that was like 18 questions, Q&As on CMP exam stuff. Can you provide additional evidence? Sure, you can to the CMP exam people, but you also need to submit it to the VA because there's no guarantee that they're going to get it. So make sure that you do that. So that's the couple kind of just double downs that I wanted to throw in there, Clay. Where are we going now? What's the next stage of this?
I want to transition to one, getting our decision, okay, and mistakes that veterans make when we get our decision. And I think the CMP exam bridge is perfect for that because it's the VA. The person who rates your claim is called a VSR. The world's calling it a rater. They're just a regular dude or gal. Okay. Anyone right now can apply to become a VSR at the VA and be like a GS 9 or 12 or whatever it is. Anyone, meaning there's no medical background from that person. Even when Jason and I speak on conditions, like for instance, our last video last week talking about GERD, I don't know what esophageal stricture is, right? I'm just some dude who's reading the schedule ratings. That is a VSR. So the weight the examiner has is a lot more than what we actually think. Meaning, um, you have to make it as easy as possible for the rater to logically think, "Hey, connect it," okay? Because they're just regular guys and gals that are rating VA claims. They're humans. I just want to bring that up and really double down on that. But once they make that decision, and I'll start this one off, Jason. Once the rater makes that decision, and then you get the prep for notification, of course you're going to say, "I got my prep for notification. When's my claim going to be decided?" And someone's going to say, "No one can answer that time frame. There's not a single person on this planet that can tell you when your claim will be finished ever." But once you get that decision, the common mistake I see is, one, you're approved and you don't read your decision letter because you're happy. And two, you're approved, but it's 0%. And now you still don't read your decision letter because you're not happy. And then three, you're denied. And guess what? You don't read your decision letter because you're not happy. And it comes down to reading that decision letter. And this is twofold. So, one, and I'm going to give props to the VFW here. 2 days ago or 3 days ago, which is today, recording this is March 23rd. So March 20th ish, um, the VFW went in front of the Committee for Veteran Affairs in Congress. And one of the big pushes they made was simplifying the decision letter, which I'm all for. Because when you get your decision letter, one, this thing is a packet. It's like 30 pages. You can claim two conditions. It's 30 pages. It's insane to me. The first half of that is baloney. It's useless. It's like, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? Did you know this? You were rated at 20% back in 1987. Now you're rated at 30%. It's like, okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Right. So once you get like 14, 15 pages down, then there's your decision letter. So the first half is baloney. I would like to see that just deleted personally. That's my opinion. But once you get to your decision letter, it's going to start off with your name, your social, and if you had an accredited rep like the VFW, DAV, or an attorney, right? And then right below that, it's going to say your condition and then the decision. Service connected, 10%, is denied, is deferred, is continued, whatever that looks like. Then below that is going to be evidence reviewed. The VA is telling you the evidence they reviewed. If you don't
Mhm.
even read your decision letter, you don't even know if something was missed. I can't tell you how many times I've asked for the decision letter from a veteran. They redact the information they'll send it to me, and I'm looking at it. And I'm like, "Hey, do you have a current diagnosis?" They say, "Yes, I do. It's in my private records." I'm like, "Oh, well, your private records weren't reviewed at all. So one of two things: you either just do a supplemental and submit that private record, um, or you did submit that and you do a high level review, and that gets into the weeds a little bit. But if you don't read your decision letter, how are you ever going to know that? And that's an easy fix, right? So right below the evidence reviewed piece is then the actual decision. And this part is really, there's a lot of fluff in there. And I know I'm explaining the decision letter a little bit much right now, but this is how you read it. We'll take a knee, left knee strain, denied for whatever reason. The very first, probably the first paragraph talks about what's needed for service connection, which is useless. It gives you the 38 CFR codes for the in-service event, the current diagnosis, and the nexus. So you can ignore the first part. The second part is probably useless as well. It depends on how your claim is structured. The large paragraph is going to be the CMP examiner's rationale, and you'll see a statement in there buried in that paragraph of amongst
Mhm.
a lot of 38 CFR codes. CMP examiner opines, blah 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 blah. Migraines is not caused by tinnitus, blah 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 blah. Okay, that's the chunk of that, and then below that, which is really the only piece you need for denial, is your favorable findings. That's what you need for a denial. If you've been service connected, what you need in the VA, just copy and paste the schedule ratings. So it goes
Mhm.
back to what we said. They said, "Hey, you are at 10% for your left knee strain. Um, we did not evaluate you at 20% because you did not meet this criteria. And guess what they do? They copy and paste the 20% criteria for left knee. So it all goes back to being prepared, right? But the whole reason I really get into, the decision letter on steroids, is because the VA gives you the answer saying, hey, we denied you, but you had evidence from service. Or we denied you, but you had the current diagnosis, right? Which means, okay, well, now I know what to do to appeal this claim if I want to. Or you're rated at 10%. Here's why you didn't get 20%. And now, if you read it, you say, oh, well, I should rate 20%. Let me go get my evidence and I'll submit the HLR or the supplemental or the increase or whatever. There's a lot of time frame stuff with that. So that's a long way of saying read your decision letters. I think that's the number one mistake when it comes to veterans getting that decision, because they make it, the decision you make to not read it happens in about 1 second, whether you're happy or you're not. And the answer is no on both ends. So, Jason, what do you think is the, or what are some mistakes after the veteran gets that decision?
You pretty much covered them all, Clay. Thanks.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. So, but here's the reality, right? People do get pissed off when they get their decision letter and it's not what they thought it should be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we're already amped up and ready for it to not be what we think. So we're already just like waiting for this negative news, right? Then it shows up and we're like, yeah, see, I knew the VA sucked. And you throw it, right? Because all you did was you finally got to the part where it said, like, you're denied, right? Not service connected or whatever it is, right? So, or you got a 0% or whatever. So you throw it and you move on and you just think, yeah, the VA sucks. And you might talk with a couple people over the next several months and they're like telling you whatever. And you're like, no, the VA sucks. And you keep moving on. And then a year and a half later, you're like, maybe I should look back into that. Well, guess what? Now you've missed your damn opportunity to preserve your effective date, which is like a double whammy. So now not only are you mad they screwed it up, but now you're mad that you're not getting back pay back to when you first initially put in your intent to file, which, I mean, this now would have been potentially a couple years worth of back pay, which is substantial. And I think that the big point here, Clay, is it's almost like, look, the information's out there. The schedule of ratings is there. It's easily able to be found. It's a little bit cumbersome. I get it, right? But you can find it. It's there. You don't look at it, you don't use it, you don't prepare. Fine. You get denied or you get a lower rating than you believe. And then the VA says, fine, you didn't take the time to go look at the schedule of ratings. Here you go. It's in the letter now. Look, we're showing you, because look, we don't know the VA, we don't know what issues you're filing for. So I can't tell you, here's the schedule of ratings for your conditions. So I'm just going to put them all up online. You can go find them ahead of time, but you don't. So here you are. And now the VA is handing it to you saying, look at this. This is what you need to be at the next level. Now, here's one of my biggest things. And I'm sure you've seen it too, Clay. I'll have conversations, or back in the day, my staff would have conversations with folks, and it would be, yeah, I have, a few things. I probably got some other things, but the thing that really bothers me and the thing that I really want to file for is X. My back. My back is really bad. And, I'm probably going to get like a 60% rating just for my back. And it's like, you walked in here, brother, and had a seat and stood up. You are not getting 60% for your back. I'm just letting you know that rating schedule sucks, right? So people get wrapped around the axle on the things that bother them and think that they're going to get a big rating for it because of how bad it bothers them. That's not exactly how the VA rating schedules work. In fact, some of the conditions that bother me less, I'm paid much higher for than the ones that I really wish I didn't have at all, because of just the pain and the issues with it, right? So like I would rather deal with my migraines. Sure, it sucks for a day or whatever, but I'd rather deal with my migraines than my back issue. right? I can't stand being stiff and trying to, stand up and, bend over and just, but I'm paid much higher for my migraines than I am for my back. So go figure. Now, the reality here is we don't read anything and it shoots ourselves in the foot every single time. My viewpoint on this is really, look, you should really try to fix it up front and file for it appropriately by reading the schedule of ratings and all that good stuff. And if you don't, and if you didn't, and if you're watching this today and you were denied or you got a 0% or whatever it was, a lower rating, whatever, 5 months ago, you're still in your window to file that supplemental and preserve your effective date. Very, very, very important. So make sure that you do that footwork now. Go back through go back through your award letter, actually read it. If you don't have it, you can ask for it. Call the VA, let them know. You can also get it online. I think I've pulled up past decisions, right? And you pull up all the information. Done that a couple times. So it's accessible. Sometimes the VA's system's a little bit funky, and it's I think just overload. So maybe it won't let you do it, but it does, and then sometimes it doesn't. So you can work with your accredited rep. They can pull up that information for you. Get it, read it, know where you're at so you can know where you're going. Read through the schedule of ratings either on your actual award letter or go online and find it and see what is required for the next level. And if you meet all that criteria, awesome. If you don't, well, then you're rated appropriately. If you do meet all that criteria, well, then read the next one, right? So if you're at 10%, read it for 20. If you meet 20, awesome. Read it for 30 or whatever it is, right? And keep going until you don't meet it. Then take that information out, copy, paste it, print it, hand write it down, whatever it is. Take it with you to your doctor. Get that put in as medical notes, get them to write you a letter if they can. Do anything you can to get that basically endorsed, essentially, by your doctor that you're experiencing these signs and symptoms. And then you'll be able to file your supplemental claim with that additional evidence to get them to correct it. Fast story, my left eyeball, which is now a snow globe, whatever, something flew in it, firing mortar, something flew in my eye and it jacked me all up. And it was, if you like getting shots, you should really have a shot of steroids behind your eyeball, because that's really exciting. They lift up your eyelid and then they go straight in. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's because you can't close your eye and not see it. It's like, here it's come, you just watch it. So anyway, I got a 0% rating for my eye. I went nuts and kind of like your story, Clay, where you filed your first claim and then you jumped into really figuring out the VA process, right? So this was my catalyst, was my eyeball being rated at 0% that was almost on the ground next to me, right? So after I figured it out and I filed essentially a supplemental claim, but that's not the process back then. But essentially I filed a supplemental claim, gave them the additional evidence, and guess what? Because I filed in haste and didn't provide them all the information they needed, they gave me a 0. But once I actually figured it out and gave them all the information they needed, because I knew what they were looking for, because I researched and did the homework, right? I got 60%. I went 0 to 60. That's a huge swing. So I'm not saying everybody's going to be that, but the reality is that I'll tell you what, most people who are not putting in the work, the educational aspect of understanding what the VA is looking for, is just leaving it to the VA to try to figure out. And that's a horrible way to go about it. Even Stan agrees.
Yeah.
All right, back to you.
Yeah, I want to double down on that. And that not just to the VA, but here's the reality. You as a veteran, is it required for you to learn the process as it pertains to you? And that answer is no, it's not required. But if you don't do that, this is the reality. One, if you're using a VSO, you're putting your faith and trust in them. Okay. And guess what? They're people too. Are there good VSOs? There absolutely are. Are there not good VSOs. There absolutely are. Okay. You can just browse Facebook groups and you'll find that out pretty quick. But if you don't do the legwork, you're putting your trust in one person that you don't know. If you don't do your legwork, you're relying on the CMP examiner when it comes to evidence. Same thing. Are there good CMP examiners? There absolutely are. Are there CMP examiners who are better than others? Sure. Right. And I'll say it that way to be nice. And so if you don't do your legwork, you're really at someone else's mercy and no one cares about you more than you. Okay. If you don't get that 60% rating for your eyeball, which I know that sucks, by the way, because that's a very, very, very high rating for an eyeball. Um, no one cares. No one cares but you. And that's just the reality. And I want to transition from we got our decisions to, okay, well, what benefits there are. And they're really linked because once you get that decision, either immediately or like 15 years later, the question's going to come up. Hey, is my condition static? That happens all the time. And I'm going to tell you right now, or the second question, and they're kind of roped in together. Is the VA gonna re-examine my condition? And I'm telling you, in your decision letter, let's go back to the decision letter. If there's a routine future exam, the VA by law cannot hide that from you. It's in there with a date. Hey, you will have a routine future exam roundabout date time. Boom, it's there. And then the second question that we always hear is, I got 100%. How do I know I'm PNT? Okay, well, there's many ways, but let's go back to the decision letter. In your decision letter, right below it says, left knee strain, service connected 10%, and whatever else. Right below that, it will say, if you're 100% PNT, you are now eligible for Chapter 35, Dependent Education Assistance DEA. If you have that line, that is a benefit for 100% PNTers only, meaning you're 100% PNT. So all those questions you have and all that research you're doing to answer those questions, it is there in the decision letter from day one. And it really goes back to read your dang decision letters. Okay. Take the first half, throw it away, read the decision letter. That's it. But that is a transition, unless that sparks a thought, Jason. That's a transition into, okay, well, I got my decision, I got my rating. What are some mistakes that we see veterans make when it comes to taking advantage of those benefits? Because that rating comes with benefits. One, there's tons. One stands out among all for me personally is I can't tell you how many times veterans don't submit dependent claims because they're married, they have children, they have stepchildren that live in the house. In some niche situations, they have parents. I have a friend who is financially responsible for their parents, so he had to claim them. That's a whole topic there. But you are missing out on a lot of money, especially for a spouse and one kid. That's the front load chunk. Every child after one, it's like $80 or whatever the number is, but still money. And that money is non-taxable income. So sure, 1 month of 300 extra bucks, you can live with that. Okay, what about 15 years of 300 extra bucks per month, right? I don't know what that math is. I can't do quick math in my head, but that's probably the number one
Marine
mistake.
Corps.
Yeah. And you're eligible to claim dependents when you're at 30%. But guess what? Even if you're at 0 or 10 or 20 or nothing, when you submit that VA disability claim, you know what you can do the very next second is submit that dependent claim. There's no reason why any veteran ever, even if you're at 0, 10, or 20, should not submit a dependent claim. Just get that process going. There are tons of mistakes I see. That's number one for me, Jason. And I'm definitely going to hit on a few others, but I want to hear your mistake once that veteran has access to benefits, right? What's the number one mistake that you see from your end?
So look, it's a very, again, nuanced thing. And that's why we're able to bring videos all the time, because there are so many different things out there and there's so many different scenarios. So I'm going to give two real quick. So one scenario would be somebody who's applying for a job, right, with the federal government, or even a local government, right? You're going to have veterans preference points. So if you can prove that you're a 30% rated veteran, you're going to be in the top tier for veteran preference points with the federal government. So that's a great benefit. It front loads you, and there's some definite benefits to that. You have I changed my mind on my second one, and then I'll do other ones later. But my second one that I'm going to do now is kind of more along these same lines, just to stay on the employment aspect of things. I like this one because it has a low entry threshold. So a lot of people know about different 100% rated veteran stuff, but let's talk about those lower thresholds, right? Your 10%, your 20%, your 30%, right? On these lower percentages, I like benefits that are either adding money to your monthly, household income, or saving you money, right? So I'm going to go to an adding money one, and that's vr&e, Veterans Readiness and Employment. So even if you have a very low rating, if you can say that your disability is causing you some issues with your work to either hold or maintain steady employment, the vr&e, Veterans Readiness and Employment Program, will help you figure out what's the best track for you to go through to get to something that is in line with what you like to do and can do with your given circumstances, whatever your disability is. Now, here's the very interesting part. There's two ways that they will pay you out a stipend. They'll either pay you the standard stipend, which if you go full-time to an institution, let's say that they tell you you need to complete your bachelor's degree to go get a job in X that's going to be more suitable for you. They'll pay you out, and I'm going to not get the numbers exact, but about $1,150 per month full-time for an institutional learning, right? You're getting your bachelor's. However, if you have any post 9/11 GI Bill remaining, any, it could be 1 day's worth, it could be 10 days worth, a month's worth, it doesn't matter. So long as you have something in your post 9/11 GI Bill bank, they will mirror your BAH allowance, your housing allowance from the GI Bill, with a maximum cap. A lot of people aren't aware that there's a cap. There is a cap on it, but it's still substantial, right? It's like $3,250 per month while you're going through the program. And it's mirroring that amount, not utilizing your GI Bill. Now, there's only a few places in the US that would actually be higher if you actually used your GI Bill, like San Francisco type of places, right? Super high cost of living. But still, $3,250-ish is a fantastic add to your monthly income into your household. And again, tax-free. So this is something that people need to be aware of, because many folks aren't even aware of it until it's too late, or they're like, well, I wish I would have known back then because I really could have used that. So those are two that I'll throw out, and then we'll kick it back to you, and then I'll throw in some more.
Awesome. I want to do personal stories on your two, because it's really these benefits you just don't even think about. So for everyone who doesn't know, I am a federal employee with the Department of the Army. Have been for a few years, and prior to that, I was in the Marine Corps. So now I'm a federal employee on the GG scale for cyber accepted service, a bunch of nerdy stuff. That's what I do. I'm not a full time YouTuber, okay. But the reason why I say that,
Double G though.
yeah, yeah, the the veterans preference, I didn't know that was a thing, right? Now, I wasn't sweating it too hard because I had the experience, but I still uploaded the proper paperwork, and through USA Jobs or whatever federal website you're using, it will tell you what that form is. I forgot what the form is. But if you
I think it's
do that,
15, SF15, I think.
it is a 15. But if you do that, here's the hidden benefit. And this is for the Department of the Army, and each agency has their own benefits. But for the Army, or a DAC, Department of the Army civilian, if you have that veteran preference and you're hired, within that first year, you get 104 free hours of, it's not sick leave, it's hours to go to your VA appointments. Okay. 104. That is over 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks of just going to VA appointments. Okay. And no one knows that. No one talks about that. So these small little benefits at that lower threshold are absolutely, that could, I'll tell you this, my first year, that definitely helped me out personally. And then on the GI Bill side of the house, another story on that one of my friends used his GI Bill for about 2-3 years of his bachelor. And then his last year, I told him, hey, you should apply for vr&e. And then what did he do? He applied for vr&e, and then the VA back paid that veteran specifically. I'm sorry, not back pay. The VA reinstated that veteran's GI Bill completely. So now what he's going to do, and he lives right down the street from me, he's going to use his vr&e to finish out his bachelor's. His GI Bill has been reinstated in full. And then now he's able to, let me get Jason back in here. All right. So now my friend, since he used vr&e, I was just explaining Jason, my friend was using GI Bill for about 2 or 3 years of his degree, and then he used vr&e after the fact to finish out his bachelor's. And there's an effective date. I don't want to go into it, but the VA reinstated his entire GI Bill, the whole thing. And so now he's going to finish his 4-year degree using vr&e, and then he's going to use his GI Bill for master's. And guess what? Whenever he goes into his master's, I'm going to recommend he applies for vr&e again. Okay. And heck, save your GI Bill for your PhD if that's what you want to do. But it's these little, yes, there are life-changing benefits at that 100% P&T mark. Don't get me wrong. And they are sweet and juicy. But these lower threshold benefits, if you take advantage of them, are amazing. Okay. Um, and the last one, well, I guess a mistake that I see veterans make after they get that decision, outside of the dependent claim, is filing with their county, or yeah, it's with their states, their county, for property tax exemptions. It depends on your state. I get that, but not every county is the same. And so you're asked someone on Facebook or on YouTube, how do I apply for my county? Okay. And it's different. One of my friends I work with lives in the county right next to mine. They have to apply in person every single year, which that sucks. Okay. Me, Fairfax, I apply one time online. I could apply right now. It would take me probably 5-6 minutes, boom, like that. And that is just a county thing in the same state. So it's not the same. The reason why I say that is because you have to figure that out for your state. More so on the property tax for your home, there's also a mortgage company deal with that. And how your county deals with that is also individual. So let's talk about Fairfax County because that's where I'm at. Whenever you submit your benefit stuff, if for 100% P&T, if you rate that property tax exemption, Fairfax, for some reason, pays a third-party company your back pay for taxes that you've already paid, right? So if your effective date was like 22, you already paid 22 taxes, you already paid 23 taxes, property taxes in there. For some reason, Fairfax County pays a third party, and then that third party has to be contacted by my mortgage company to get the money to then pay me, right? No one knows that. And each
Wow.
county does it differently. And so, that's the mistake. I guess it's not the mistake. The mistake is it's an awareness and an education piece. So once you do get that decision, it is on you, and none of this is automatic. Okay. Fairfax County is not going to be like, hey, don't pay property tax, right? You have to do that yourself. And so it's really just understanding your benefits at your rating and then just figuring out. And, did it suck figuring out how Fairfax County works? It did, right? But I sat down in my chair and was like, okay, let's just do this thing and get it over with because there's a monetary value to it. That's really my number one, or my two mistakes, is dependent claims and then just doing the legwork. So instead of preparing your claim, now we're taking advantage of our benefits. It's the same concept. I know you got more to add, Jason, so go ahead.
Yeah, and this is just like you said, an awareness thing at this point, and it's just nice to kind of throw off things off the top of your head. And now that you've talked about taxes, specifically real estate, it made me think about your VA funding fee with a VA home loan. If you're a disabled veteran at any percentage, you get that fee waived, and that is by far the most expensive fee, other than your realtor fees. If you're selling a house, well, if you're buying the house, you don't pay them. So anyway, the the VA funding fee is substantial. That's waived at any percentage as a disabled veteran. Now, here's the interesting part: you could have a claim in process, then close on a loan, then have your claim decided and backdated. You need to contact the mortgage company and let them know my effective date was before the loan. I was a disabled veteran. It just didn't get decided, but my effective date of disabled veteranhood is over here. So they will refund you that fee. So very important, and you can utilize your intent to file for that. If you've never filed a claim, you can go, okay, I know that I'm going to be buying a house. I'm going to put in an intent to file now, buy a house, file a claim, let the claim get decided. Then once that's all done, then come back and get that refunded. So it's another great benefit with a very low threshold. Another one is some educational benefits out there for from the states specifically. I'm going to use California as an example because they probably have the most liberal educational benefit that I could think of for veterans. So they do have some really good veteran benefits. This is really probably by far the best. If you're a disabled veteran at any percentage, your children, no matter how many you can have 15 kids. They can all go to any state school, community college, USC or CSU, either one, right? So any of the universities, all the way through to a doctorate if they can get it completed. I want to say that one has an income threshold. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's two different versions. One has an income threshold. Your child cannot exceed whatever, $15,000 per year of income. And they can go to school and get a doctorate if they wanted to. Pretty sweet, for free. And then they also have the 100% version. If you are a 100% rated veteran, your dependent children and your spouse can also go to school tuition free all the way through to a doctorate. And they can also receive Chapter 35 benefit, which is $14.88 per month. But they have to complete it the kids have to complete it by the time they're 27. So if they go to school at 18, boom, knock it out, right? So, but the bottom line on that is that there's a very low threshold for the dollar figure one. They just can't earn more than 15,000 per year or whatever the number is, and they can complete a doctorate. Texas has the Hazelwood Act, which is also a great benefit, educational. You have all these different hunting licenses, fishing licenses, park passes. Every state's a little bit different. Some might say if you're a disabled veteran at any percentage. Some will say if you have a 50% rating, you get these things for free. So it's just the first thing that you should start doing once you have any rating is, like you said, Clay, try to figure it out for your county, for your state, and just federally. Just start Google searching, disabled veteran benefits, X county, X state, and just start looking around. And ideally, you'll find it on their actual one of their websites. Usually, the department that there's different names. There might be a combination as well. There might be a military and veterans affairs department for your state. There might be a veterans affairs department. Some variation, right? Everybody names them something different, but go through and find it. Like Texas has the Texas Veterans Commission. So find the appropriate government body for your state and either pick up the phone and call them and ask them what they have, or find it online. That would be my 2 cents on that, Clay.
Oh yeah, I'll end it with one last benefit that is kind of funny. But to throw in there, the Virginia has the Department of Veteran Services of Virginia, which is basically the county VSO website. All Virginia and all the links that you need to get your benefits in Virginia is on that website. And each state's VSO office, I'll just say that blanketly, will have something similar. Now, the funny benefit, and then you can close it out. So my family, my whole family from Louisville, Kentucky, right? They don't get out of Kentucky that much. Next year, we're going to Disney World, and there's going to be like 10 kids and 5 adults. It's going to be nuts. Okay, probably 15 kids to be honest with you. My family, we pump kids out left and right. I got 4 of my own. Okay, um, but the reason why I say that is because, all right, I'm looking up, I'm looking at Disney, and guess what? My family, we're going to buy 6 tickets. I'm saving. I think we priced it out at about $1,600 just for the tickets because of my VA rating. Small things like that. No one's going to tell you, hey, if you're going to Disney World, if you're going to Busch Gardens or whatever it is, you're going to some cabin somewhere in Tennessee, like Gatlinburg. I guarantee you there's some type of veteran benefit somewhere on some websites for travel for Gatlinburg. I could almost bet my life on it. Small things like that. So yes, we're going to Disney next spring break. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be hot. We got kids. Other than that, Jason, that's really all I have. Do your legwork. And if you don't, to be honest with you, this is going to sound harsh. If you don't do your legwork, then don't complain. Pretty much. That's really what it comes down to. I know that's a bit, rough around the edges, but I want to say that so you understand the point. Do your legwork, submit your claim, gather your evidence, understand your benefits, and read your dang decision letters. Okay, Jason, if you have any thoughts, go ahead. If not, close out.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and I say this sometimes, and look, you have to treat this like it's $1 million deal, right? Because it is. It really is. Especially if you're doing this upfront early, the amount of money that you can get from compensation, the amount of money that you could save for medical expenses through VHA, the amount of other monies that you have coming in from different various benefits or savings. I mean, just even Home Depot, if you're a big Home Depot or Lowe's shopper, I mean, you're saving 10% on it. I mean, I've saved thousands of dollars on trips there. So it's one of those things, and you kind of talked about it earlier, right? A small amount in that day doesn't mean too much, but you start multiplying that over a lifetime. I mean, look, Burger King, if you're a fast food person, I think gives 10 or 15%, right? So it's like if you have to ask, right? So a coffee shop that I go to in town, it's not Starbucks, it's just a little local one, support local. Anyway, they have a military discount, right? Military veteran discount. So ask, right? And those little pieces add up, and you start multiplying that over the long term, and it's a lot of money. So all of that to say is that, right, education, doing the footwork, treating it like it's $1 million deal, because it really is all important. And it's not just for you, it's for your family, it's for your children, it's for your spouse, even when we're gone, right? These are benefits that continue to move on, and they're able to take advantage of as well. So this has been a fairly long video for us. So thanks for holding on to the end. If you made it, if you did make it to the end, put a comment in that you did. If you hear that, that's one of the hens. She's laying an egg. That's what laying an egg sounds like. Yeah, it's not pleasant. I mean, the egg's pretty big. So thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate you. Have a great one, and we'll see you next time.